My life story, written by Shri K.J.S. Dhillon. Part 2. Life in the army is full of challenges, and for an officer, taking timely and correct decisions under adverse and life threatening conditions is the ultimate responsibility that can make the difference between certain death and assured victory for the nation. Let me assure you here that no live combat situation can ever be aptly described in any military pamphlet or taught in any military training classroom. The anecdotes I am narrating here reflect how various events at different points in my life have imparted strength of character, making me physically, mentally, and emotionally impenetrable. In retrospect, I realize that these diverse incidents, though seemingly unconnected to each other, were actually parts of a larger blueprint woven together as microcosmic elements in the macrocosm of my life. One such interesting phase in my childhood occurred when I was studying in school at Firozpur before joining the NDA in January 1980, and both my maternal uncles were also posted there. Prudentially, the army unit into which I was eventually commissioned, 4th Battalion, the Rajputana Rifles, was also stationed in Firozpur around this time. I enjoyed playing basketball, but our school did not have a proper basketball ground. So, for our practice sessions, all the members of our school team used to visit the expansive basketball ground of 4 Rajputana Rifles, which also had an outstanding basketball team of its own, including a few players who had represented the team at the services and national levels. As school kids, we used to have what were popularly known as friendly matches with the 4 Rajputana Rifles team, and irrespective of whether we won or lost the match, we were always treated to steaming hot samosas and freshly made jalebis procured from the unit's wet canteen, which, needless to say, were always on the house for us. Hence, interestingly, the genesis of my career long association with 4 Rajputana Rifles began while I was still in school in the mid to late 1970s, long before I was formally commissioned into the army and joined the elite battalion on 17 December 1983. Interestingly, 4 Rajputana Rifles was also famously called the Fleet Street Battalion during the Second World War. The reference was to Fleet Street in London, where The offices of all the major newspapers were located during the Second World War, and since during the war, Fort Rajputana Rifles was so often in the news because of its successful wartime operations, it earned the epithet Fleet Street Battalion. I must mention here that the samosas and jalebis which we feasted on after our matches with the four Rajputana Rifles team continue to remain my favorite snacks till date, in addition to churma, a North Indian delicacy made of sugar and desi ghee, which is eagerly sought after by the troops of Rajputana Rifles, who mainly hail from Rajasthan and Haryana. My school years in Firozpur were, in fact, momentous years of my childhood. One such humorous incident occurred when I had messed up one of my examinations in the 10th standard and had been hauled up by Mr. Juneja, the newly appointed principal, who had recently joined from a very reputed school in Delhi. I was asked by the principal to bring either my parents or local guardian to school for a suitable admonishment. Petrified, I sought the help of one Gurdeep Singh Sandhu, who was working in the office of my uncle as a mid level executive. Incidentally, my uncle, Guru Avatar Singh Sandhu, shared the same initials as Gurdeep Singh Sandhu, which convinced me that it would be easy to pass him off as G.S. Sandhu in front of the new principal who had not met my uncle previously. Agreeing to accompany me to the school as my local guardian, he carried me pillion on my bicycle, ready to confront the principal's ire. Everything was going as planned, and the principal was quite congenial with my local guardian till Murphy's Law played its part just when we were about to leave the principal's office. Gurdeep Singh Sandhu got carried away, pompously stating that I was a good student and had even got a scholarship in my class the previous year. Nonplussed, the principal summoned my class teacher, Mr. Manohar Lal Kakkar, to inquire as to how things could have gone so seriously wrong that a scholarship holder ended up with a poor performance. Mr. Kakkar knew me well as I had been in the same school for the last 3 years, and his appearance on the scene would not bode well for me. Thus, realizing that the matter was getting out of hand due to my local guardian's overzealousness, both of us quietly slipped away. This incident also indirectly conveys the message that it is not imperative for one to always perform well in all examinations in life or to get disheartened by an occasional poor performance, as these exams are stepping stones towards a larger pedagogical goal, the goal of proving one's mettle in real life. The second lesson I learned from this episode involving Gurdeep Singh Sandhu was that while planning for an uncertain or first time operation, the end state must always be well thought through, and all contingencies that may arise must be considered. As I also learnt later in my military career that no plan survives the first contact with the enemy. As I have mentioned earlier, my mother's death so early in my life left me with an inherent sense of deprivation that plagued me subconsciously, especially during my years of adolescence and immediately after being commissioned into the army as a young officer. This feeling left me distinctly distressed on a particular occasion when the unit had moved to a peace station after an extremely difficult field tenure. I wanted to own a bullet motorcycle and had even struck a deal with a family friend for his bike, but could not buy it. When I pondered upon this denial in solitude, I could not help but feel that had my mother been alive, she would not have let her son go through such a situation. My childhood angst perhaps shaped my character, making me accept the fact that everything in life may not be available to me on a platter and I would have to toil for it. This incident, however, did not hamper my determination to own a bullet. I approached my school classmate and NDA course mate, then Lieutenant Harminder Singh Bhullar, that is Jimmy Bhullar, my closest friend till date, who immediately bought a second hand bike at an amazing price because bullet motorcycles were banned in Punjab in the mid 1980s and were thus available at good bargains. He even transported the bullet by the railways to Udaipur. In the absence of mobiles or online tracking system, I would visit the Udaipur railway station every day to check if my Bullet Mary John had arrived. My determination to work hard towards acquiring whatever I wanted was also reflected in my choice of profession, which was an analogy for self dependence and inner strength. The feeling of a vacuum due to the lack of a mother's affection emerged very strongly when I was course commander in Kashmir and was the kernel behind my idea of Operation Ma. This initiative, which will be discussed in detail in a later chapter, was a watershed in counterterrorism operations in Kashmir as our attempt to enlist mothers' help in preventing their sons from becoming terrorists was unexpectedly successful, potentially deterring many young men from picking up arms against the nation. The core thought behind this operation was that no mother should be without a child and no child should be without a mother. Like most children, I too was initially afraid of the dark, but even this fear was overcome through a very interesting situation during my teen years. My grandmother owned a buffalo, but since her house was located a little away from habitation, at a distance of about 1 kilometer from the nearest locality, leaving the buffalo outside the house at night posed a big risk of cattle theft, and we could not afford to lose this asset. Hence, The buffalo had to be paraded every night to a relative's house in the nearby locality and brought back the next morning. And being the youngest in the family at the time, this duty of marching the buffalo up and down invariably fell on my shoulders. The long walk with the animal during the night acclimatized me to the strange sounds and silences of the outback, which held me in good stead years later as an army man who could not afford to be ruled by fear of any kind. I am purposefully narrating these incidents to help the young army aspirants realize and understand that the mental build-up to join the defense forces does not commence with the passing of a written examination or getting through an SSB or on physically joining the NDA, IMA, or any other pre commissioning training academy, but is the sum total of all of life's teachings and experiences that shape the character of a soldier. The toughness of a soldier is manifested in both his work and play, and I too nurtured a love of sports and played inter-school basketball and kabaddi at various levels throughout my academic years. This, however, landed me in serious trouble once in the 10th standard when I injured my knee badly during a kabaddi game, fearing that if I showed my injury to anyone at home, I would not be allowed to go for the practice sessions. I neglected the injury. I did not seek any medical attention and carried on all my activities normally, including cycling to school, until one day I could no longer hide or ignore the festering wound. Noticing me limping, my Naniji started probing, and we both found that gangrene had set in. With memories of my mother's death due to infection still fresh in her mind, she was reduced to tears and rushed me to a doctor who was also shocked to see the laceration, which had become quite ugly by then and took a long time to heal. I guess the ability to withstand physical pain and overcoming unknown fears and mental stress at such a young age proved to be an asset on several occasions in the course of my perilous sojourns and counter-terrorism operations. During one such operation in Kashmir in 1999, I sustained an injury on my shin bone but did not report it and carried on until the end of the operation till we had successfully eliminated the cordoned terrorists. Although they say that the army teaches you to be tough, in my case, I suppose one could say that life had taught me to be tough even before joining the army. As with pain and injury, my encounters with death too cropped up unbidden on various occasions in my life. In his famous sonnet, Death Be Not Proud, the renowned 17th century English metaphysical poet John Donne describes death as a mighty and dreadful force. However, the most important caveat here is that no matter how tough you may be, nothing prepares you to take death in your stride and Death has stalked me and my dear ones throughout my life. After the death of my mother and brother, the next person close to me who left this world too soon was my first cousin, my Mamaji's younger son, Major Harinder Pal Singh Sandhu, with whom I had spent many happy days of fun and frolic in BG's house. We had grown up together, playing not only marbles but countless other games like hockey, cricket, and French cricket, a concocted version of the game played between only two players, where the legs of the batsman act as wickets and the bowling is done from a rather close distance. He had also been my partner in crime as we took on the bully Jaggi when he was trying to swindle our marbles. He was commissioned into the 6th Battalion, the Brigade of Guards, 2 years after me, and subsequently served in the Rashtriya Rifles unit deployed in South Kashmir. On the fateful day of 23rd December 1993, he made the supreme sacrifice while attempting to rescue his commanding officer, whose vehicle was ambushed by terrorists close to his post near Bijbehra. I am certain the soldierly spirit of never say die was in his mind when he rushed to the site of the encounter. He was awarded the Shaurya Chakra posthumously by the Honorable President of India for his act of gallantry, which was received by his wife. His untimely death at the age of 30 years, leaving behind two small children, a 3-year-old daughter and a 4-month-old son, apart from his young wife, was yet another personal loss and shock that was difficult to overcome. I still remember my last meeting with him when I was posted in the Jammu sector. He had come on a short leave to see his newly born son and stayed the night with me on his return before rejoining duty at the Jammu transit camp prior to returning to his unit in Kashmir. The emptiness and intense pain that the passing of a loved one unleashes is magnified by the physical presence of inanimated objects in the same setting which remain, but the human being associated with them is no longer around, such as the still unfolded bed sheet on the bed in my house on which my cousin had slept a few nights before his fatal encounter with the terrorists. A bedsheet that would no longer be used by him lying on the bed that he would never occupy again. His wife, a very brave lady, brought up her children in an exceptional manner and ensured the best quality education and subsequent professional training. The boy is a commercial pilot and the girl is working with an international airline. All these tragedies in my life, involving the deaths of people close to me at work or at home, undoubtedly affected me immensely emotionally, but definitely made me more committed to my duty as also physically and mentally stronger. These tormenting personal losses also underscored the impermanence of the journey through the transitory experience called life. This realization is particularly stark in the army, where the very next instant could lead to a deadly assault or a fatal encounter with the enemy or terrorists. In fact, I have had many close encounters with death during my entire service career, fighting terrorists in Kashmir or the northeast of India, wherein coming face to face with live bullets could have killed me every single time. These omnipresent threats to my life are the lives of my colleagues or subordinates, and actual death at times have thus been almost a routine for me. But the grief deep inside me for the people I have lost in my personal or professional journey cannot be negated, and a part of me too has died each time there has been a fatal loss. Here I must reiterate that a soldier killing the adversary, including terrorists or enemy soldiers, as part of his duty also re emphasizes the reality of death, for it was just a stroke of luck that the gods of death is this time were kind to his side rather than theirs. The first and only fatal casualty that occurred in my command during my service until I took over as Chinar Corps Commander in January 2019 with 7 tenures in counter-insurgency or counter-terrorism operations in the northeast or Jammu and Kashmir was that of Lance Naik Patty Tasuk bar to Sena Medal gallantry, that is, winner of Sena medals for two separate gallant acts. He was also from the Brigade of Guards and at the time of his fatal encounter with terrorists was serving in the Rashtriya Rifles Battalion deployed in North Kashmir, where I was commanding a Rashtriya Rifles sector as a brigadier. He hailed from Arunachal Pradesh and had a natural hunter instinct wherein he could actually sense the presence of a terrorist in a group merely by observing his style of walking or limb movements. The bravery of Lance Naik Party Tasuk and how the commanders cater to the welfare of the families of the brave hearts who make the supreme sacrifice for the nation is narrated in a greater detail later in this book. The Hindi song Jindagi To Bewafa Hai. Life is treacherous and will one day betray you. Death, on the other hand, is your real lover as it will eventually take you along. From the movie Mukaddar Ka Sikandar is the most apt description of this harsh reality, and nowhere is it more applicable than in the life of a soldier who flirts with death almost on a daily basis, be it to fight a foe or hunt a hidden target or just attempt to survive in the most hostile terrains and weather conditions he has to endure. Thanks for listening. As school kids, we used to have what were popularly known as friendly matches with the 4 Rajputana Rifles team, and irrespective of whether we won or lost the match, we were always treated to steaming hot samosas and freshly made jalebis procured from the unit's wet canteen, which, needless to say, were always on the house for us. On the house means at the management's expense. On the house means free. My determination to work hard towards acquiring whatever I wanted was also reflected in my choice of profession, which was an analogy for self dependence and inner strength. Analogy. Analogy means a comparison between one thing and another for the purpose of explanation or Clarification. The feeling of a vacuum due to the lack of a mother's affection emerged very strongly when I was course commander in Kashmir and was the kernel behind my idea of Operation Ma. KGRNAL, kernel means the most important part of something. However, the most important caveat here is that no matter how tough you may be, nothing prepares you to take death in your stride, and death has stalked me and my dear ones throughout my life. CAVEAT. Caveat means a warning, a caution.